Welcome and thank you for tuning into 412 Double Play Podcast. I am, as always, your host, Michael Castrogano, solo running this week as Ed has had to take leave. So you've got just me talking through this week's of Bucks Ball. Let's dive in. Transactions report moves this past week. Martin Perez lands on the 15-day IL, left groin strain. Catcher Joey Bart heads to the 10-day IL with a left thumb injury. On the other side, Ke'Bryan Hayes reactivated from the IL, and Grant Koch, who was previously on the taxi squad, had his contract selected, added to the roster. We did see reliever Dalton Jeffries only sitting on the bench, or I guess hanging out in the bullpen. He was added as the 27th man for the doubleheader with the Tigers last week. Didn't get into the game, sent back down following the series. And before the game today, Quinn Priester added back to the roster. He was on the taxi squad this weekend with Alika Williams headed to the 10-day IL with mysterious illness-itis, because I don't know about you guys. I didn't see any official reports as far as what was going on with him. He hadn't been playing much lately. I think it was backdated to May 30th. So maybe, he got into a game on Thursday. I saw something about like his left wrist, but he was going to head down to AAA or worse. So, some interesting stuff there. Obviously, hope that nothing too serious with either Bart or Perez. I'm not sure what happened with Bart exactly. That was the injury that happened in the first inning of last Sunday's game. But Perez is going to kind of throw that fifth rotation spot in flux. We're seeing some great starts between Jared Jones, Bailey Falter, Mitch Keller, Paul Skeens. Those guys all have a sub-4 ERA. Something to keep an eye on as far as how they handle that fifth spot, if it's going to be Priesters going forward, or if they're going to maybe play with it a bit. I don't know if they're going to have bullpen games in there or what, but with them having to limit Jones and Skeens' innings this season, it's not going to be something where they're just going to roll with a four-man rotation. Other news, not that necessarily impacts the Pirates specifically, but Angel Hernandez retires. I think he kind of got a reputation as being the worst umpire in baseball. Sometimes it was deservedly so, sometimes not so much, but happy trails. Good thing he didn't miss his exit out of the league. And Negro League stats integrated into MLB record books, which means that a Pittsburgh Crawford, former Pittsburgh player, now holds the record for career batting average, career slugging, career OPS in Josh Gibson. He's got a whole bunch of records now. So I'm sure some old school baseball, air quotes, purists, if you're not watching on YouTube, will probably hate this. Purists maybe substitute a different 3 letters at the beginning of that instead of PUR. But it's interesting. My concern on adding these stats was the legitimacy of it, and not in that sense, just in the record keeping wasn't as good in the Negro Leagues, unfortunately. But Baseball Reference talked to Josh Booth with Rich of October, and he said that these guys have been researching this for years. I was like, okay, it surprised me a little bit that they were doing it, but at the same time, it makes sense. Like the Negro Leaguers are now in the Hall of Fame, and there wasn't a way that they'd be able to play. So I'm 100% on board with it. I think it's cool. It's definitely going to be interesting when you're looking at stats and saying like, oh, this guy is here. A lot of counting stats, they're not going to be leading in. Josh Gibson on his Hall of Fame plaque says that he hit like almost 900 home runs. I think I saw he had like 129 or 16, whatever it was. It was not that the kind of amount that you would expect from him. So, cool things baseball's doing. Lou Gehrig Day today. So everybody wearing a number 4 patch on their jerseys. ALS, man, it's just any of the, and not to take away from ALS, but any of those diseases that attack the nervous system, like MS, is just, that's just tough. That's tough seeing people going through it, tough having loved ones. So definitely great that they bring awareness to that disease, which has been around for so long, and who knows if they'll ever find a cure. Hopefully. Looking at this past week in games for the Pirates, a rainout with no rain on Tuesday led to rare back-to-back days without games before the Tigers doubleheader on Wednesday, and the Pirates were kind of limping coming out of that day off. Jared Jones experienced his first really bad game, allowed 7 total runs in 4.1 innings with 2 walks, 2 strikeouts. Wasn't helped by his defense. 2 of those runs were unearned due to 3 errors in total, but overall just wasn't as sharp. Admitted as much after the game. Tigers starter Tariq Skubal was dominant. Bucks bats couldn't get anything going. Got only 3 hits in total in the game. Skubal, I think, went 6 innings, 8-0 blowout in game 1. In game 2, turned tides. Paul Skeens pitching 6 innings of 3-hit, 2-run ball, 1 walk, 9 strikeouts. This is the kind of Skeens we've become accustomed to. Nick Gonzalez and Andrew McCutchen each hit home runs, leading to a 10-2 Pirates win. Another day off, and then heading north of the border to face Toronto, Bailey Falter continues to be weirdly amazing. 6 shutout innings, just 2 hits, 2 walks, 5 strikeouts. He did leave with only 81 pitches thrown, a 1-0, very slim lead over the Blue Jays at the time. Kutch had an RBI single in the 5th, but Ji-Won Bae had a poor read on a fly ball in the 7th inning and led to an equalizer from Toronto. Eventually, extra innings. Both teams traded runs in the 11th and 12th before the Jays managed to punch through, walk-off 2-run homer in the 14th, bottom of the 14th, 5-3 win for Toronto. Saturday afternoon, Mitch Keller dealing, 6 innings, 1-run ball, walk, and 8 punch-outs. Offense went to work. Hayes and Reynolds each hitting 2-run homers as the Bucks won 8-1. And then today, Quinn Priester up to make a start. He was giving up some loud contact early. He left with a 3-2 lead in the 5th inning, but had 2 runners on, and reliever Hunter Stratton promptly allowed the tying and go-ahead runs to score. Not even a 3-hit, 4 RBI day from Rowdy Tellez could save the series, as the Pirates lost by a 5-4 score. The interesting thing that I'll say is that the Pirates scored 10 and allowed 10 runs in the Tigers series, and really outscored the Blue Jays this weekend. So if you're looking at the Pythagorean expected win-loss record, they'd probably be expecting us to have won more than just 2 in these 5 games. But the offense shows up sometimes. It showed up at times today, but I think they left 13 guys on base. We only had 3 hits with runners in scoring position. And all 3 times it was Rowdy Tellez, so you can't really rely on that. Obviously, we're going to come back to Rowdy's subject in a second because that's going to be the special this week. But Schulte's over-reliance on forcing these single-inning relief pitchers to go multiple innings when we have a day off tomorrow. Saturday's game, it was just Bailey Falter, it was Mitch Keller, and then Luis Ortiz got a 3-inning save. The rest of your bullpen is available. But he went to Stratton for a 2nd inning instead of going to anyone else. And I saw someone tweet after the game, Shelton said, and I can't confirm if this was real, but if Shelton actually said that Jose Hernandez was not available because he hadn't pitched in 9 days, and I probably should verify that before saying it, but it's true, he hasn't. But I can't think of a real reason not to have gone to someone else. You don't need to keep forcing these guys who are not getting it done when they're going multiple innings. I talked about it last week. I'm not going to rehash that subject. If you haven't watched already, go ahead and check out last week's episode. Pretty much just laid into Shelton. Hopefully going to be more positive this week. But let's take a break and look down on the farm. Records weren't so great this past week. Indianapolis hosting the Omaha Storm Chasers. 7 games because they had a makeup game in there. They went 1-6 on the week. The record hasn't been great, but Matt Gorski continues to crush. Another 3 home runs this week. He posted a 773 slugging percentage. Insane what that guy's been doing. Indians are now 24-31 in the record books. Altoona hosting the Portland Sea Dogs, 2-4 on the week. Pitchers were Braxton Ashcraft and Po Yu Chen. They each pitched 6 innings of one-run ball in their games this week as the curve dropped to 16-35. They're really struggling out of the gate. Greensboro at the Asheville Taurus went 3-2. Their last game today, Sunday, was canceled due to rain. A couple of position players are playing way above their level. Nick Samillo, a catcher, he posted a 1.357 OPS this week, while Charles McAdoo had a 526 batting average. Both need immediate promotions to Altoona. Kind of no reason for them to be there. Altoona's offense isn't all that great. It could certainly replace somebody. Hoppers rise to 29-21 on the year. And finally, Bradenton at the Fort Myers Muscles. They went 1-5 in their series. Shaylen Polanco is finding his groove, slashing 308, 526, 385 this past week. Had a 5-4 walk to strikeout ratio, going 3 for 3. Stolen base attempts, kind of getting that contact back going. We're not seeing much of the power showing up from him, but he's getting on base. He's getting hits. Right now, that's what you want to see. He's somebody who is poised to shoot up the prospect charts. The Marauders are now 21-30 on the season. So, not having a double play partner this week, there's not really much for me to kind of bounce back and forth on, but Matt Gorski has been a top subject, and he's going to be one of the people I'm going to talk about in this week's special, which is how to solve a problem like first base. So I mentioned we're going to go back to positive this week because this is something that we all desperately want to find the answer to. Pittsburgh has consistently struggled to find a cornerstone at first base, going back to maybe the late 90s when we had KY playing there. While Rowdy had a strong first game at the Blue Jays, in the final game of the Blue Jays series, no one expects him to be a major part of this team going forward. Sorry, Rowdy. So let's discuss some internal options the team may look at to get some play at first base this year, at least until the trade deadline. And number one, I'm going to start with Matt Gorski. Big name among fans, especially lately, has been Gorski. He's slashing 275, 313, 611 at Indianapolis this season, 11 home runs. I think he just hit that 11 today. Maybe it was 12. In 44 games played, he's appeared at first base in 11 of those games, compiling 78.2 innings. The most values defensively has been in the outfield, where he utilizes his speed to cover more ground and make plays. I think he's going to be fine at first base. There's some concerns in his plate discipline. He has this season at least, a 31.3% strikeout rate to just a 6.3% walk rate. But when he hits the ball, it's going a long way. I think that the strikeout rate is something that he'll need to improve upon in order to be successful if he gets the call to the bigs. Nick Gonzalez has made it work. He's had a really strong showing, at least the past couple weeks, and has managed to cut down on his strikeout percentage. But then you see guys like Jack Sawinski, where it kind of goes the other way and it becomes a problem. So got to find balance there, keeping the power and not striking out, going towards 40%. Number 2 on this list is going to be Jake Lamb. Now, he's the one on this list with the most MLB experience, but Lamb is the definition of a quad A player. He's going to continue to get opportunities with major league clubs, but he maybe not deserving of it. He has a solid 315, 399, 444 triple slash in 45 games with Indy this year. Over the past 3 seasons, he has a 297, 409, 482 line in 190 games over 4 organizations, 4 AAA organizations. Different teams. But a level up, he has a career 753 OPS, which is heavily weighted by his 2016 and 2017 seasons, as he hasn't posted an OPS above 680 in 5 of the last 6 seasons. He's average defensively at first base, but he's basically this year's version of Miguel Andujar. He's going to look great at AAA because he's probably better than AAA pitching, but he's not better than Major League pitching. And I'm sure get a chance at some point this year if he keeps it up. The opportunity will eventually arise, but fans need to quell expectations because he's just not the guy. Number 3 on this list, Nick Gonzalez. And I mentioned him earlier as someone who's been heating up lately, but is it even remotely likely that we'll see a 5'10" first baseman for the first time since Michael Chavis? And I like Michael Chavis. Was not was not the guy there either. Is this remotely likely? Probably not. He has a whopping 0 innings at first base in his professional career, and they're more likely to go with Connor Joe more often, Jared Triolo because of the defense, but no one on this team has been as hot as Nicky G the past few weeks. Since May 10th, his call-up date, he's been on fire. 315, 370, 521 slash line. I think he's got 3 home runs in that time. He's leading the team in RBI, leading the team in runs scored. I mean, he's just the full package right now. Biggest issue previously was staying back on the off-speed and breaking stuff. He's looked much better. He hit a home run on a changeup last week. He's barreling up curves somehow, something that we're not really expecting from him, but it's happening. If they are going to move someone over to the first base position, it's very possible that someone who they've developed internally, it's very possible that it's either Nicky G or the next guy on my list. And that, Yark, if you're listening, I'm sure at some point you're listening, you're going to love this one. Brian Reynolds. There's been recent reports that the team has had Reynolds taking reps at first base. Seems like it may have only been a one-time thing. Doesn't seem like there's any immediate future where they're going to be putting him there. However, ever since those reports came out, he's been the best defensive outfielder in baseball. He's gunned out multiple runners at second base. He currently leads all outfielders with 7 assists. Next highest is 5. That said, outfield is one of the easier positions to replace, either internally or externally, and Reynolds moving to first would solve 2 problems. Helps keep him healthy long term, provides a solid performer the team can slot in as their cornerstone and kind of continue to build around, knowing that that is a long-term piece they have under contract for years to come. Maybe that's something that they're going to be looking to in the future, near future, long-term future. We'll have to see how that turns out. But that's my picks for potential options at first base. Want to hear your thoughts on who the team should look to take the majority of first base reps for the foreseeable future. Maybe you're convinced that Rowdy has turned things around. His 3-for-4 performance today was enough to sway you. But looking ahead, home sweet home with the week in front of us. We've got the off day Monday, and then 3-game set at home against the Dodgers, hosting the Dodgers, and then the Minnesota Twins come to town Friday through Sunday. For the Dodgers series, currently the matchups look like former Pirate Tyler Glasnow going up against Jared Jones. Game 2, we've got Southpaw James Paxton facing off against Paul Skeens. And then on Thursday, Walker Buehler will face off against Bailey Falter. There is not a good way to look at this Dodgers team. The offense is insane. The pitching, like they basically just have an all-star team across the board. If we, for some reason, we've played well against the Dodgers in the past. I don't know why. We'll go into LA in a 4-game set and win 3 of 4. I don't think that's always going to be the case, and this team is just so good, and this pitching is so good that it's impossible to say for sure. Glasnow is going to be tough. If Jones can have like a Jones-esque start, then that's great. Our best chance of getting wins is going to be against Paxton, who's having a pretty resurgent year. I mean, I think he was with Boston last year, but overall, I think that that might be our best chance of getting a win. Oh yeah, he's 5-0 with a 3.29 ERA, but he does have a 1.38 WHIP. I don't know. And then Buehler hasn't been as great since coming back from injury. Yeah, it was with Boston. So our best chances will be in those final two games. Right now, going into a Dodgers series, you definitely don't want to get swept. I'm gonna predict we go 1-2 in that series, but there's every chance we could win 2 of those games. There's every chance we could win all 3. It's a long shot with that offense, though. Twin series Friday matchup is projected to be Joe Ryan versus Mitch Keller. Joe Ryan had a really strong first half of the season last year, fell off in the second half. Possible it happens again this year, but he hasn't been as strong, but he's still having a really solid start to the season. Saturday, Simeon Woods Richardson will be facing Quinn Priester, and then Bailey Ober versus Jones on Sunday. Ober has really been like a back-end rotation. I think he's got like 4.5 ERA, even though he keeps his whip down. Like you want to be able to end this week at least at 500 between those series. So my prediction would be that they take 2 of 3 from the Twins. Really, they should be playing competitive baseball across the board. These are 2 pretty good teams, but from different standpoints. Dodgers are great across the board. Their offense is elite. The pitching staff is great. Their bullpen, I think, is one of the best in baseball. Their fielding's insane. Like, they have no holes in their game. The Twins have holes, but they're more like a gritty team. And I really like that. I like the pitching staff more coming into the season. I said that the Twins were like my second favorite pitching staff in baseball behind Seattle, but I still think they're pretty good. I don't know anything about Woods Richardson, but Joe Ryan is solid. He's gonna get strikeouts. He's going to get ground balls. Bailey Ober's the same way. They get weak contact. It's basically just like beating their hitting, because the Twins don't have a lot of offensive threats, at least right now. All right. Well, keeping it with a short episode, as sometimes will happen when there's only one of us here. So that wraps it up for all of us here at the 412 Double Play podcast. You can follow me on X at 412 Double Play. Continue listening to the show, Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, wherever else podcasts can be found. Subscribe to get notified when we drop our new episodes. Check out the articles at steelcity.com. Henry Davis was just announced today, like just before I started recording, that he's going to be called up. And Ethan Smith of Lockdown Pirates, I'm sure you've heard of him, just wrote up a really cool piece that should be on the site by the time you guys are listening to this. Definitely check that out. I'll have a preview piece for the Dodgers series up on Tuesday, breaking down everything on that. And so definitely check all that stuff out. As always, thank you for listening, checking out the show. From all of us here at the 412 Double Play podcast, thanks for joining us this week. Let's go, Bucks, and take it away, Sawyer.
Lady Jolly Roger, dude.
Have a good one.